Living in the country means we're blessed that we're not surrounded by violent street crime, but opportunistic thefts and targeted thefts of expensive equipment do happen. Today, we've got some top tips to make sure they don't happen to you. Hello, welcome to English Country Life. Welcome to the cottage on a beautiful sunny day. My name's Hugh, and together with Fiona I'm on a small holding here in rural Lincolnshire. And Lincolnshire is really a sort of country county. It's a big county, it's very spread out, very little in the way of bigger cities or big road networks. It really is a proper rural idyll. But it also has the lowest per capita spend on policing of anywhere in England, which means we're large, we're spread out, and we don't have much in the way of police force. When we needed a police officer about a minor theft incident on one occasion, it took them 3 days to turn up. You know what they say, when seconds count, the police are only days away. So, you know, round here, you have to be sensible, you have to look after yourselves, and you have to not make yourself a target of the opportunists and the targeted thieves. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We've learned to put sensible precautions around us to make us unattractive to someone who wants to nick our stuff. And we'd like to share those tips with you. Default state for an old country bloke is kind of leaning on the gate and chewing the fat, and I quite enjoy doing that with my friends, but that's the point. I'm leaning on a gate, and I want to talk to you about our 4-step process to make sure that people don't make off with our stuff. And the acronym we use for that process is DADS, and that stands for deterrence, don't make your place attractive. The A stands for access control. The second D stands for detection, knowing that people are there. And the S that we're going to talk about stands for security, physical security. So let's talk a little bit about some of that and how we make the approaches to our property deterrent to the people that've got sort of, you know, casual thievery in mind or even targeted thievery in mind. So first things first, I'm leaning on a gate, and it's a locked gate, and we keep our gates locked all the time. Every access to our property has a gate, and that gate is always locked. Now that means that people cannot casually come in, wander around, and they can always have some plausible excuse of, you know, oh, I want to see if you had a bit of scrap for sale, as they're nosing around your yard and seeing if you've got locks on the doors and what equipment you have. So don't let those people onto your property to begin with. On our gate we've got some physical signs. One says no cold callers, and one advises people that we have closed circuit television, and we do quite extensively have that. Other things that may not be as obvious, I've got a thick hedge beside me, and that hedge comprises of things like blackthorn and holly and dog rose. You're not going to push through that hedge without coming out with major lacerations. We have a video doorbell there. Now that is really convenient in a rural location. So wherever I am on the property, if somebody comes up to our locked gate, they press the doorbell, I can talk to them, they can talk to me, I can come down, collect a parcel. But it also has motion alerts on it, so I know if anyone's come onto our driveway at any time of the day or night, and it's shooting video of them. We also, on that side, have a big floodlight. And that floodlight means if I pull up at night and I need to unlock the gate, I can see what I'm doing, and it's easy to do. But put yourselves in the mind of a thief. You pull up onto a driveway, there's a locked gate in front of you, there's a motion detector that's recording you with video, and you're shot with floodlight. You're just going to sit there and go, there's got to be easier places to rob, and you're going to go elsewhere. Before we move on from gates, I just quickly want to give you a top tip. Most farm gates have these kind of pin and loop arrangement for the hinges. And that means you can just lift the gate off its hinges, even when it's locked. It's very convenient to remove the gate if you need wider access, etc. But obviously from a security standpoint, that's not ideal. Now, some people will turn one of the hinges over and have it come into the loop from above to prevent that. And that's one approach, but if it's a lot of stress on the other hinge, it also means you can't remove the gate if you want to, so it's not ideal. A better option is an anti-lift device. It's a simple metal bracket that padlocks over the pin and prevents the gate being lifted off unless you remove the padlock. Now, on the subject of padlocks, I will say you shouldn't put too much faith in them alone, because a good lock-picking device can remove them. This is my chosen lock-picking device. It's a battery-powered angle grinder. And I just want to show you how long a padlock stands up against one. We've talked a bit about gates, and they fall under both deterrence but also access control. Now let's talk about doors. All our doors on the property are solid doors, but I also want to talk about locks. Now locks for me means a proper mortise lock with at least 5 levers on it. Those sort of Yale lock night latch things are fine for making sure your door doesn't swing open in the breeze, but when you're out or when you've gone to bed at night, they're really not secure enough. They're terribly easy to open. So get some proper mortise locks that have removable keys. And you also want removable keys on window locks, and you should have window locks on all your downstairs windows, particularly wooden ones like these, because otherwise somebody can slide something between the 2 sets of panes, open the latch that way, and they're ridiculously vulnerable. You know, I would be very surprised for a lot of us rural dwellers if your insurance policy doesn't insist on proper window locks and proper mortise door locks. I'm sure most of us have got some tools stored outdoors in outbuildings, whether that's a small shed in the garden, a bigger shed down the allotment, whether it's a 3-bay barn with a combine harvester and a tractor in it. We've probably all got them to some extent, and they are very, very vulnerable, and we forget the value of what's out there a lot of the time. So, you know, in a shed like mine, there'll be tools like chainsaws that cost many hundreds of pounds, rotavators, brush cutters, all those kind of things that are very expensive, and most insurance policies don't cover a large amount for outdoor stored tools, so it makes a lot of sense to secure them with great care. So let me show you what we did to try and do that. So first things first, the building itself is a solid masonry building, and there are no windows. All of that sort of thing is bricked up, so it is very, very hard to get into other than through the door. And the door is a solid wooden door, and the hinges are coach bolted through both the masonry itself and through the solid wooden door. That's the hasp the builder supplied to lock the door. And honestly, an aggressive toddler with a screwdriver could rip that hasp out. It's only secured with a few wood screws. They are rubbish. This is the hasp that I fitted. It's got M10 coach bolts going all the way through the structural members of the door. It is bolted into the solid masonry on that side, and it's secured with a big padlock that doesn't have a vulnerable hasp for the angle grinder to get to. I'm not saying it would be impossible, but it would be a lot harder. Let me show you how that kind of hasp works. So in our dad's acronym of deterrence and access control, have covered the first 2 letters, we're now on to detect. You need to know if somebody with bad intent is on your property. How do we do that? Well, there's several ways we do it, but one of the ways that we're particularly keen on are these, and these are ring cameras, and we have many different types. We have mains powered ones, we have battery powered ones, we have ones with lights, we have ones without lights, but they have some core features that they do. One of the things that we are particularly keen on is they can have motion alerts associated with them, and you can set them up to say if anything moves through this area here, send a motion alert to my phone or to my tablet or what have you. Obviously they are also video cameras, so as well as sending you an alert that there is motion in that area, they will send you an image of what has triggered that alert, and obviously they'll also then take a video recording of it. Now you can also then configure the time at which it does that, because this is our front garden. We don't particularly want to be getting alerts during the middle of the day when Fiona and I are sat out here having a coffee at 7 in the morning. But if it's triggered at night, we want to know about it. And actually we have had alerts from badgers, from foxes, from owls, and all sorts of other interesting things. But it's a very, very good system for letting you know that something is moving around in your garden, outside your house, or inside your house. And again, you can have those things sort of configured so that when you're out at work, if something moves inside your property, you get to know about it. Quite a lot of things are actually low price and low tech that allow you to detect whether people are around. You'll see up on the wall behind me a big floodlight, and these are cheap, LED floodlights with some motion detectors on them, and honestly we've got them all over the place. They're ever so handy for us because there's no street lights, there's no outside light. It's dark at 4 o'clock in the winter and you want to come out, get some more logs for the Essie. They light your way across from the cottage over to the log shed. They light friends in when they call around in the evening. But they also alert us to if anyone's moving around out here that shouldn't be, because they're brightly illuminated. And these things can be very simple. We also can hear anything moving on our driveway. It's a gravel driveway and it sounds like you're walking on cornflakes when you walk on gravel. And of course, never forget, if you really want to be good at detecting people, get a dog. A barking dog is one of the things guaranteed to put off any burglar. In terms of detection, probably the most powerful tool in our army are alarms. And we've got them on every door in the property, outbuilding, house, what have you. We've got contacts, which fit both doors and windows. And we've got motion detectors, and we have zones on the alarm systems, which mean that we can have part of them armed and part of them not armed. So for example, if we're working in the house, we can have all the outbuildings alarmed even though we're moving around in the house. Alternatively, at night we can have the downstairs of the house alarmed while we're sleeping upstairs, all the outbuildings alarms, etc. So you can configure and you can mix and match. We've got systems that will sense a human being from hundreds of yards away and again transmit back to the house, put on a flashing alarm and even phone the relevant companies because they're monitored systems. So alarms really are very flexible, very powerful. We're almost at the end of the dad's acronym. We talked about your place should have a deterrent value to it. It shouldn't look appealing to a thief. We've talked about access control, and we've also talked about you've got to be able to detect if a bad guy is around. Well, the S at the end of DADS stands for security, physical security. And by that, I mean there are some things that actually you can just improve with good old-fashioned heavy steel, big locks, that kind of thing. And I want to give you a few examples. So first things first, let's get our imaginary thief that's come to our property. He's not put off by the fact that he's had to climb over a locked gate with CCTV signs on it. He's not put off by the fact he's been illuminated like the Blackpool lights, or the fact that he's obviously on camera. As he comes round into the yard, he's not put off by the solid steel drop bar, coach bolted through, the solid wooden door into masonry. He's not even put off by the fact the alarm triggers and all the sirens go off, and he gets inside the tool shed and he finds that all the tools are chained up to ground anchors. And I'm not kidding. These chains, I cannot emphasize enough how big and how heavy they are. And a ground anchor is something like this. It's solid metal and it's secured into reinforced concrete with a roll bolt that has a non-return head on it. So in other words, it penetrates 3 inches into reinforced concrete. It winds out, it's weight bearing. I could hang off a single one of them, and then the head will only turn in one direction, so you cannot unscrew it, even if the chain wasn't present, because the chain covers the heads up anyway. So I tell you what, with those kind of arrangements, no angle grind is going through that in a couple of seconds. Those kind of things are good, and physical security is also good for things that you cannot always put away in a building. And a great example of that is the recent fuel crisis. We knew people who had 1,000 litres of heating oil stolen because they didn't even think to lock their tank. And another thing that was going missing a lot was propane cylinders, which a lot of guys in rural areas use either for cooking or for heating. And the big ones, the 47 kilo ones, are like that high, and they were costing at the time well north of 100 quid. And a lot of people had 4 of them side by side without any security on them at all. Now, let me show you one of these. This is a very thick, tough wire rope with welded strops on both ends, eyelets on both ends. And all you got to do to secure your propane cylinders is pass that through the solid handles, put a big solid padlock on the end. Can you imagine trying to lift 4 steel cylinders that are that tall when they're all chained together and banging around, and you've then got to try and get them over a locked gate? So this kind of physical security really still has a place in a modern high-tech world. That's our approach to rural security. We don't think it's something that you should be terribly paranoid or worried about, but I think it's something that some sensible precautions mean you can sleep easily at night knowing that you're not likely to be the victim of an opportunist or one of those nasty folks that targets your tools. Remember the acronym of DADS because it helps us, and DADS stands for discouragement, access control, detection and securing your equipment. Those four things together, layered to cover your gateways, to cover your home, to cover your outbuildings, really will make all that kind of difference. If you've enjoyed today's video, can you spare us 5 seconds? Give us a thumbs up down below. If you want to know more about the ways that we manage our security or any other aspect of country living, let us know what they are in the comments and we'll try and answer you down there, or maybe even make a video to show you what it is that you want to know. And if you'd like to see those videos and everything else we produce, tap on subscribe and hit the bell next to it. It's a free service that alerts you every time we upload a new video. But for today, enjoy the sunshine, come back and see us soon. Take care.